The CAP theorem forces us into a situation where we have to make a choice between strong consistency or high availability. Now, this is a challenge because really we want both, right? I mean, ideally, what we would like is to have both of those all the time. But we can't have that. That's what the CAP theorem tells us. So the question is, how do we decide whether we aim for consistency or whether we aim for availability? Which one is more important? Now, the choice between consistency and availability isn't really a technical decision. It's actually a business decision. This is a decision that should be made at the business level rather than necessarily by the developers. Having said that, often it ends up being a technical decision because often what we do is we pick a database and then we leverage the database for that purpose. The database will either provide us with consistency or it'll provide us with availability. We usually just pick a database and then we live with the consequences of that. That's not really what we want though. Really what we want is we want to be able to pick a database for various reasons, but we still want to be able to balance between consistency and availability no matter what database we pick. It's also usually not an either-or situation. It's usually not a situation where we say we always want consistency or we always want availability. It's usually more of a situation where sometimes we want consistency and sometimes we want availability, depending on what part of the application we're in and what the consequences of a failure would be. So the decision of when and where to sacrifice consistency and availability should theoretically be discussed with domain experts and product owners. We should talk to these people and say, look, we can give you high availability in this situation, but it will cost you this. Or we can give you strong consistency here, but it's going to cost you that. We should be having these discussions so that everybody understands what the consequences are of making this choice. And of course, we realize the fact that from a business perspective, they're going to say, well, can't I have both? And that's when we have to have a conversation about what's possible and what isn't. The most important thing we need to do, though, is we need to factor in the impact on the business on things like revenue if the system is unavailable versus eventually consistent. So if you look at a business that sells products, for example, online, is it more impactful on the business to potentially provide out-of-date information, or is it a larger impact if you just can't buy anything? So what's going to have a bigger impact on the business? What's going to have a bigger impact on the customer? How is it going to affect them in the long run?